Do you ever get stuck trying to figure out what to write in your fan emails? If that's you, this is for you. We have to write some emails to talk to our fans, to engage our fans, and sometimes we just sit there looking at the screen going, what in the world should I write? If you've experienced that, hopefully today's training will help you. My name is Bree Noble. This is Indie Interactive, where we talk about making great music, connecting with your audience, and growing your business. So let me know that you're here with me today. I know that I've talked to a few of you before this and you're excited about this topic. And I know for me, writing emails sometimes can be daunting, especially if you're looking at a blank page and not knowing where to start. So let me know that you're here in the chat. Let me know what you guys struggle with when writing your fan newsletters, your emails to converse with your fans, to try to get them to take an action. And we'll talk a minute about that, trying to get them to take an action from your emails. So let me know that you're here. I want to say hi to a few people, and then I'm going to jump into the content today. All right, so let's see who's here. Saying hi to Matungi and Annie and Molly. Great to see you guys this morning. Say hi as you're coming in. So let's start talking about what we say in these emails. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different kinds of emails that you write to your fans. You could be maybe writing just a one-off email to get them to do a particular thing, like come to a show, watch a video that you just released. Or maybe you have a content system where you want to release a newsletter of some kind on a certain schedule, twice a month, once a week, whatever you're doing. I always recommend, if you have an audience size of at least 100, you should be publishing once a month. And I'd say if you've got 250 to 500, you should be publishing twice a month. And then more than 500, I think you should be going with once a week, because you really want to engage with this audience. You want to get them remembering you. So when you're figuring out what to write, I want to give you a little prompt here. And that is to think about some stories that maybe you've told out with your friends. I think this can be helpful because sometimes we think, oh, our stories are boring. I can't think of any stories to tell. But when you're out with your friends, are there any stories that people are just cracking up at, or they're just riveted to hear the whole story, or, they're just really moved by the story? If there's any stories that you've told like that in, just regular friendly company out with family or friends, those are stories that I think would be interesting for you to use with your audience. Hopefully they're not too personal. I know some people don't like to get super personal with their audience. I always encourage people to get as authentic as you feel comfortable with your audience. But think about those stories that have really resonated with people as you've told them just in casual conversation. And think about how you can relate those in some way to your music journey or what's going on right now in your music. So I also encourage people to create a list of stories, just a list of prompts to remind you what the story is. It may seem a little strange, but it's just like when you're coming up with lyric ideas. You should keep something with you at all times. And if something strikes you, write it down on your list of engagement stories so you can remember later what that story is. And, maybe it won't come up for a while in being a story that makes sense for you to use based upon what you want your audience to do, but it could come up later. I've definitely, 2 years down the road into my business, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I never told them this story, and I figured out a way to weave that in. So keep a list, just like you do with lyric writing, keeping a list of ideas. So what you want to start with these stories is you want to create an outline. And in your outline, you want to think about Number one, what is the climax of your story? You know, what is the most important thing that happens in the story? The thing that's just going to keep them, you know, riveted, that you can build up to. And then what are the lessons learned from this story? Now, maybe there's not specific lessons learned, but there's always, you know, something that happens after the climax that kind of culminates the story. And there's a reason why people are interested in this story, whether it's a lesson learned or just something that is apparent because of this story. So write down what that is. And then also think about what call to action you would relate to this story. Now, maybe it's just that you want them to respond to you. Maybe it's you want them to write back to you on email and, you know, give their input about the story, or let you know, if they've ever had an experience like this, or if they can relate. That's totally cool. That's a way to get them to engage. So engagement is a call to action, but maybe it is you want to get them to, see your newest video, and maybe you tell a story about something that happened during the video shoot, or, tell a story about how you got the idea for what you put in the video, or, try to find a call to action that relates to your story. And so when you're writing your story list, if you can come up with a call to action while you're writing that down, like if immediately it's set, you say to yourself, oh, this story could totally, get them to listen to my new song because it has to do with recording my new song or something, write that down. But if you don't have that yet, maybe when you're thinking backwards and you're saying, okay, I need them to do this thing with my next email. Maybe I need them to, join a group that I'm starting, or come to this particular show. Then you need to think of a story that will go well for that and kind of move them toward that call to action. So you want to then go back to your list of stories and see if there's anything that really relates to that. So I know the hardest thing about this, once you've got your outline, is to just start. Because you're sitting there, you've got this blank page. And what I want to encourage you to do is don't sit there with your email program open. I find that to be intimidating. If I am starting with a blank page and a blank subject line, and I'm in my email program and I'm writing it directly there, somehow that is very intimidating to me. So I want to, just start out with nothing. I want to either write it down on paper, or I want to have a blank Word document, or something that doesn't make me feel that pressure of oh, this is going to be an email and I've got to get this done and I've got to send it out and all that. I'm just writing a story at first. So the biggest thing is to just start writing. And, I think we all learned this in school, that exercise they used to do where you just sit down and you free write for 10 minutes. And I know a lot of us have done this in relation to songwriting. But free writing in relation to emails is also important, because you don't want to be censoring yourself. You don't want to be thinking about how what you're saying is coming across. That is for the editing process. That's coming next. But just sit down, look at your outline, and then just start writing. Or you could even maybe talk it into a recorder if that's easier for you, and then go back and write from that. But just get it all out of your brain and into a place where then you can go into editing mode. So now we're going to go into major editing mode, and this is where most of the magic happens. You do not need to try to figure out how to do all these things I'm going to tell you next in the mode where you're just writing, because then it'll slow you down. You'll rethink everything, you'll get stuck, and then you'll want to give up. So don't do that. Don't censor yourself. And then when you go into editing mode, now I want you to think about these things that I'm going to tell you right now. Number one, you want to think about a hook. And a hook can definitely be in the subject line and in the first line of your email. So you need to think about something that is going to get them to be very curious, to want to click on that email and keep reading. And every line in your email, the biggest thing about every line is to get them to read the next line. So try not to have any extraneous lines that are boring, because you need to think of every line within as something that's going to keep them moving forward to read to the next line. But you got to figure out this hook. And it can be very curiosity based. If you notice in my emails, if you're on my email list, you will see I use a lot of maybe questions or how-tos, or something with like a leading, like I'll have like part of a sentence and then I'll have ... like I thought this was gonna work, but then I figured out ... or something like that, where it's going to make them go, oh, I really want to know what the end of that sentence is. Or just any kind of a short subject line that evokes curiosity, but they need to keep reading to figure out what the rest of that is. And keep in mind that most email programs like Gmail and stuff, they only show you the first 27 characters. So I always count my characters and go, okay, if they only see this much of the subject line, will that make sense to them? So that's the way I handle that. And once you've kind of come up with a hook, the next thing you want to do in your editing process is turn everything into conversational language. And this was a hard one for me, because, most of us have learned how to write the 5-paragraph essay. My husband is an English professor. English was one of my best subjects in school, although I didn't major in it or anything, but I did love it. And it's so hard for me sometimes at the outset to change my language to be more conversational, because sometimes in my mind I think, okay, I'm dumbing this down, but I'm really not. I'm not writing for a teacher. I'm not writing for someone to read it in a book. I'm writing for someone who's just maybe like, they're in between doing things and they pulled it up on their phone and they're just looking for something to fill the time for a few minutes. And they don't want to read like a manifesto. They want to read something that feels conversational, like they're listening to a podcast, or they're having a conversation with a friend about an interesting subject, or they're talking to you in person. That's the kind of feel that you want to have. So make sure that your language you don't use like words, sometimes we feel like we want to show we have a big vocabulary, and I have a decent vocabulary, but sometimes I censor myself. I'll go and I'll have thought of a word that sounds a little more like I would use it in an essay, and then I'll go in and Google synonyms for that word and try to find the simplest, most conversational version of that word that I can, that sounds more cool and casual versus this, long and complicated word, while still not losing the nuanced meaning of the word I want. So sometimes you need to go backwards in your synonym finding and look for words that are less complex, that are going to feel more conversational in your writing. If you notice in my emails also, I use a lot of ellipsis, I use a lot of dashes, a lot of things that are not necessarily grammatically correct. Sometimes I use incomplete sentences because it needs to feel more casual, more like you're talking versus reading an essay. And another thing on that subject is the way your email looks. You don't want it, again, to look like an essay, so you don't want these big blocky paragraphs. And if you're familiar with blogging at all, that's a major no-no in blogging. Don't have paragraphs that are longer than 2 or 3 sentences, because it looks really blocky and intimidating, and it makes people not want to continue reading because it feels like they're going to be slogging through this information somehow. Just something about creating more white space on the page makes it feel a little less intimidating and a little more like you're having a conversation versus reading, an essay. So keep that in mind. White space is important in your emails. Next, definitely, and this is something that my husband is always big on with his students, because we all make this mistake so often, is show, don't tell. And what I mean by that is, don't just describe everything that happened, and make them feel like they're passive in the story. You want to get them feeling like they're right there. You want to bring all these images and smells and feelings and, all these things to mind, so they feel like they are with you in this story. They are coming alongside. When you read a good book and you just picture everything in your mind, you picture yourself in the scene, that is what you want to create. And you can't do that by just describing everything. So use a lot of sensory language. Instead of saying, I was nervous, when I walked out onto this stage of, in front of 100,000 people, start describing. Say, I felt the sweat trickling down my back. My palms were sweaty and I was afraid that they were going to slip right off of the keyboard. Get really, really specific with the sensory language. The crowd was so large that I couldn't even pick out anyone individually. They were just like little ants. Try to make them feel like they are in the scene and they're starting to picture all of this and feel it and get really visceral and sensory and involved instead of just describing it. And then next, the big thing when you're editing your story. So like you've gone through, you've written this thing in a brainstorming kind of way at first from an outline. You've just kind of spewed everything on the page. Then you go back and you edit it based upon conversational language, based upon trying to add a lot of sensory information. And then if you still feel like just not right, like something's wrong, I'm not getting the feeling that I want, the biggest thing I want to get across to you guys is to ask for help. So many times I can see things in other people's writing that I can't see in my own, and vice versa. People can see things in my writing that I didn't notice. They might look at this sentence and go, this sentence makes me feel nothing. But I've already attached all these feelings to it because it's my story. So if you feel like your email seems dry, if you feel like you just don't know where to go, like you're starting to tell the story but you just don't know where to go next, ask for help. Ask a friend, ask a duo partner, ask a band member, ask somebody in one of the groups you're in, if you're in the free female indie musician community, or if you're in the Female Musician Academy. I mean, that's what these groups are for. Get some accountability partners, ask for help, do the same for other people, because we all get stuck. Trust me, it's hard to go this alone. And it's, a lot of us haven't been in school for a while. Like the writing muscle has not been exercised except maybe in songwriting, and that's a completely different thing than writing and engaging email to your fans. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And finally, the most important thing of all is make sure you don't forget to put that call to action in there. Hopefully you've thought up that in advance before you even started writing the email, but be sure to put a call to action in there, even if it's just to respond to the email. Maybe it's to go watch you on a Facebook Live or watch a replay of a Facebook Live. Maybe it's to come to a show, watch a new video, listen to a new song, sign up for your Patreon, whatever it is. Make sure that you include a call to action and you somehow relate it to the story that you're telling, so they feel that continuity and congruency, and they're not like, that was a cool story, but what the heck does this have to do with it? So definitely don't forget to put that call to action. Make it really easy for them. Make the links clear, or if you're asking them to respond, ask them what you want them to respond to. Ask them what you want feedback on. Ask them to answer a particular question. That engagement is really helpful for boosting your email rates as far as not being considered spam. So just if you don't have a call to action, you just want to tell them a fun story, then just ask for their feedback. Ask for maybe any similar experiences that they've had. So I hope all that was super helpful. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? What really resonated with you with all those tips that I gave? Is there anything that you haven't been doing that I was just talking about that you want to add to your email writing regimen. Now, the reason I'm doing this today is because we're kind of all in this back to school mode. I just sent my daughter back to high school. Actually, not back to high school. She is a freshman. So she went to high school for the first time, which was very stressful for her and a little bit stressful for me. You know, my other daughter's in 3rd grade. And so we're really, and my husband's a professor, so he's about to go back to school. We're in this back to school mode. And I love it because I love kind of having these seasons of the summer where we're a little more relaxed. And then when we get into this back to school mode, I just get really focused and serious. And so I thought, you know, why not do a very schoolish, back to schoolish theme of talking about writing and encourage you guys to get back on the writing bandwagon with your fans and be sure to continue to engage with them. Also, I wanted to introduce you guys to a back to school giveaway that we're having. Once a year, we do a giveaway, and we give away a one-year membership to the Female Musician Academy, which, if you're not familiar with, it is an exclusive membership for female independent artists. And we have tons of different training for whatever level you're at in marketing, social media, business, booking, everything that you need to run a successful musician business, as well as we have twice a month group coaching calls where you can ask all your questions. We have expert workshops every month. This month we're talking about creating an excellent YouTube channel. We've got some other ones coming up about growing your studio of private students, and also talking about vocal health. So I'm really excited about those coming up. And we also every month, you know, or every day, like we're all conversing in our private Facebook community of female musicians that are all really serious about what they're doing and their art and their passion, and having it as a business where they actually make money and make progress. So that is what the Academy is. If you want to enter the giveaway for a chance to win, you want to go to femmusician.com/giveaway. That's F as in female, E as in entrepreneur, musician.com/giveaway. And you can enter to win. There's also a lot of really cool ways you can get more entries. You can join our Facebook Messenger list, so you get notifications about these live streams that I do. You can also get more entries by just sending out your special link on social media and letting people know to come and join the giveaway. So I want to encourage you to go to femmusician.com/giveaway and enter. Even if you're actually a member right now, you can get a free year of the Academy if you win. So, and like, I just got a phone call. That's so awesome. I forgot to turn off my phone. So luckily I was done with all the teaching right now. So I just want to kind of check in the live stream and see what you guys are saying about your frustrations with writing email, and if anything was particularly helpful for you. Cool. I'm glad you're on board with writing in a conversational style. And I know, you know, those of you that are on my list, you know, not every email that I write is awesome, but I try very hard to write good, engaging emails. And I do get a lot of compliments and comments on them, that people really enjoy reading them. So I do work hard on that, and I think that it's worth it. It's worth it for you guys to spend the extra time to make your emails especially conversational. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about keeping it conversational. Interesting. So Caroline said she thinks that, or Caroline said that she thinks that writing emails is less intimidating than posts on social media, which is really interesting. I guess I can see that because you're writing to a group of people that haven't subscribed to you. They don't necessarily know who you are on social media yet, or not all of them. And so I can see why that can be a little more intimidating. You definitely want to use the same idea of keeping it conversational when you are on social media, maybe even more than on in your emails. So I can see what you're saying, but use the same tips that I gave you for social media. I think that they will help. Oh, thank you, Beth, for saying I'm good at writing with a hook. I always think all this stuff out. I don't always hit a home run, but I definitely try. I see those hooks every day in my email. Awesome. Yeah, and you know, another thing is you can take a cue from other emails. If you get emails that you like, now don't like copy them, but if you subscribe to other artist newsletters and you see something in there that you really like, then definitely keep a copy of that. Keep kind of a record of all the things that you like from other artists, and then go and get some inspiration from that. People call that, you know, in its inspiration file. Some people call it a swipe file. I don't like that because it makes it sound like you're going to copy it word for word. So don't do that, but use it for inspiration. Yeah. So not writing it on the email, it does. Writing it on an email platform gets intimidating. Whatever the platform is, if you're on Bandzoogle and you use their newsletters, if you use MailChimp or whatever, something about being in that piece of software is intimidating. I don't know what it is. So I just want to say hi to all you amazing people that are here. Caroline, Carol, Robin, Elle, Annie, Grace, Carol, Denise. Wow, you guys are rocking today. I think you guys really, really like this subject matter, because it just shows me that I'm choosing a good subject matter that a lot of us really struggle with. Helen and Beth and Joan, so great to see you. Carlene, Christina. Wow, you guys are writing a lot. So let's see if I can just check a couple more comments in here. Let me know if you have any questions on anything I didn't cover, because it's hard to cover everything, but hopefully I did. Jane, awesome. Good subject matter. Thanks, Robin. Jane says, I'm not full of myself and lack confidence, so it's difficult to share. I get that. I get it. It's a process. It's definitely a process. And I'm not suggesting that you be full of yourself, but there definitely needs to be a certain confidence level. Keep in mind that these people have subscribed to your newsletter. Like, they care, they want to know about your life, they want to know about your career. So always remember that. And that's where it is different from social media. Maybe on social media you feel a little more timid, and I don't blame you, because there's people out there that are out to be mean. You know, there just are. So, but when you're on email, just remember that these people have subscribed, and guess what? They can always unsubscribe if they don't like it. And every once in a while, I have some hater that says that my stuff is crap, and I just write back to them and say, if you don't like it, leave the room. Like, no one's making you stay here. So, you know, just understand that there will always be people out there ready to tear you down, but most of those people are not on your email list. They are there for a reason. And if they are on your list and they want to be mean to you, then just block them. Let's see. You're welcome. It's harder to tell a Lori story live than to write for me. It's true. I think that that's true, and that's why you need to write the stories. Here's another benefit out of this. When you write these stories, now you've kind of got them written in your head. Now that you've written them on paper, they're kind of stored there a little bit. The way you told them, the specifics you used, the sensory aspects that you used, and you can use these in your live shows now. You know, once you've written it out, then you kind of have this outline and timeline of how you want to tell it. And that can be really helpful in a live setting as well. And again, if you wanted, you could just bring that outline if you're wanting to tell a story on stage. Like, for example, right here, like I'm teaching to you, I have a bunch of note cards. That's all I have. I don't have this all written out. But since it's your own life and your story, you know those experiences. You just need little reminders of the points that you want to touch on. And you could easily bring a little outline to your shows and just glance over at it while you're telling the story until you get really used to telling that story in front of people. But yeah, making up a story off the cuff when you're live, that is hard. And I don't recommend it. You're welcome, Megan. So it looks like Megan got here late. You can always go back and watch the replay, of course, if you want to get all of the tips that I gave. Another thing is this always gets released as a podcast the next day on Thursdays. So if you want to go back and listen to this later, when you're in your car or something, you're on your way to work, you're on the subway, and just be reminded of all of these specifics, you can just go to femmusician.com/podcast and it will be at the very top. It'll be the most recent episode starting tomorrow morning. So again, I want to remind you to enter the giveaway, femmusician.com/giveaway, in order to be entered to win a year of the Female Musician Academy. We only do this once a year, so this is a really cool opportunity to possibly win a year of the Academy and hang out with me on some live Zoom calls twice a month for a year, hang out in the Facebook group for a year, and of course, not just me, all of our awesome artists, many of which are here right now. So reminder, if you're a member right now, you can still enter and win a year of the Academy, and we'll just tack it on. If you already have a year, just tack it on to that. So F is in female, E is an entrepreneur, musician.com/giveaway. And please don't enter if you're a male. We can't give it to you unless you want to give it to your daughter or your friend or something like that. But Female Musician Academy is clearly for female artists only. It's a safe place for independent female artists to flourish. And I, have always kept it just females for that reason, so we can empower each other and not feel that competitiveness that sometimes comes with mixing genders. No offense to any males. Absolutely, we love you, but we love having this place of our own in the Female Musician Academy. So enter femmusician.com/giveaway, and I will see you guys next week.